Her sapphire earrings hit the counter as she whispered, "I'm done being their display." Marcus opened his laptop, revealing blueprints for a building that could change thousands of lives. And in that moment, Vivienne realized their wedding night held a secret bigger than love. It held a revolution. The chandelier threw dancing light across the marble foyer as Vivienne Caldwell took the grand staircase like a runway. Emerald silk hugged the curve of her hips. The dress cinched her waist and fell sleek over her thighs. Her hair, golden and glossy, brushed her bare shoulders. Ruby lipstick, diamond cuff, sapphire studs, old Charleston money packaged to dazzle. She felt the weight of it like a jeweled collar. Earrings, her mother said without looking up from the mirror in the drawing room. The sapphires, not the pearls. The Weatherfords notice everything. "I already changed," Vivienne replied, catching her own reflection in the hallway mirror. Hourglass silhouette, practiced smile, eyes that didn't quite match either. Her brother, Trevor, was sprawled in a leather chair with a bourbon he didn't need. "Keep it tight tonight," he said, tipping the glass at her, meaning her manners and her dress. "The hospital board will be crawling with old buzzards and father wants them fed." Richard Caldwell emerged, straightening his cufflinks. 50,000. That's the number. Sufficient for a plaque, insufficient to encourage begging. Vivienne nodded because that's what a Caldwell did. Charity as choreography. The limo rolled through the historic district where houses wore their longevity like medals. Spanish moss swayed. Tourists stared. Behind tinted glass, Vivienne counted her breaths and told herself the ritual was fine. Graceful, time-tested, safe. Underneath the thought was another one she couldn't silence. Who would I be if nobody was watching? Inside the ballroom, gold light, soft strings, the soft musk of power, she became the woman her mother had trained. Glide, tilt your head, call the women by their first names and the men by their titles. Smile wide enough to show warmth, not teeth. Compliment a dress, a fund, a harmless anecdote. Near the silent auction, a small crowd gathered around a man in a wheelchair. He wore a navy suit, lean across broad shoulders. His walnut-brown skin caught the chandelier glow. His voice was steady, gentle, textured by a life that hadn't coddled him. "The new gait training system reduces fear for first-time walkers," he said, hands relaxed on the armrests. "You see, their eyes change. They stop thinking about not falling and start thinking about moving." Vivienne drifted closer, drawn by sound before sense. She didn't realize her heel had slipped into the hem of her gown until the world lurched. She pitched forward, a sharp gasp escaping as she fought not to break 5 figures worth of silk. "Got you," he said, not touching her, just speaking in a way that steadied her anyway. She righted herself, cheeks flaring hot, pride bristling. "I'm fine," she said too fast. "Glad to hear it." The corner of his mouth tugged, not mocking, amused. "I'm Marcus Reed," he added, turning enough to include her without dismissing the others. "I run physical therapy groups for amputee kids. We're expanding the program if the hospital hits its goal." Vivienne Caldwell. The name usually worked like a master key. She watched for the flicker, recognition, recalibration, courtesies, sharpened for donors. Marcus nodded once. "The foundation gift will matter. We've got a 12-year-old trying to return to soccer." He said it like a fact, not a favor owed. "It's important to give back," she said, the sentence polished from years of use. "Community is everything." "Is it?" he asked, level. Not a challenge, not exactly. A mirror held up without apology. Vivienne blinked, throat tightening around a defense she suddenly didn't want to hear herself say. A woman in scrubs pressed in to ask about scheduling. Marcus turned to her, giving full attention without ceremony. Vivienne stepped aside, unmoored. She wasn't used to the feeling of mattering less than the conversation happening next to her. She wasn't used to wanting to. She found oxygen on a balcony where the night smelled like jasmine and tide water. Music seeped through the doors in expensive strings. Footsteps clicked behind her. Viv. Jenna Park, college roommate turned corporate litigator, slipped to her side with a knowing slant to her smile. "You looked like you needed a friend, not on the Caldwell payroll." Vivienne huffed out a laugh. "Tell me I didn't just almost faceplant in front of the hospital's board. You glided like a swan in a hurricane." Jenna followed her gaze. "You met Marcus." "Aye, yes." She struggled for neutral language and found none. "He didn't care." "About your last name?" Jenna's eyebrows lifted. He cares about the kids, he's good at that, also blunt. Blunt, the word tugged. He asked if community mattered to me, like he could tell I was performing. Well, Jenna said, almost kind. Were you? Vivienne's laugh died in her throat. I don't know. Inside, her mother's cool hand found her elbow. You look flushed. Powder your nose. The Weatherfords are ready for the photo line. Elaine's tone softened into strategy. Darling, the man in the chair, the therapist. If he approaches, be gracious, of course, but keep it appropriate. Appropriate, Vivienne repeated. Her skin prickled. She endured the pictures, the speeches, the gentle lion's share of attention. At dinner, Trevor leaned across Crystal and whispered, our friend at the auction was holding court like he owned the room. Vivienne set down her fork, appetite gone. Maybe he owned the moment, she said before she could stop herself. Her father glanced up from his phone. Don't pick fights you can't win, Vivienne. I'm not, she said. I think I'm losing one with myself. When the applause swelled for a video montage of children balancing on parallel bars, Marcus's face appeared briefly, laughing, then serious, then listening with a patience that looked like strength, not softness. Vivienne felt the image settle beneath her ribs. Outside, on the ride home, her parents debriefed the seating chart, which donors were slipping, which families were worth a lunch invitation. Charleston blurred, columned porches, iron gates, magnolia shadows. Vivienne watched her reflection flicker in the tinted glass. Perfect hair, expensive makeup, a stranger's restless eyes. Next week, Richard said, we'll host the board for cocktails. Vivienne, you'll wear the blue Dior. Elaine, call chef about the oysters. Of course, Elaine said. Vivienne? Of course, she echoed. Her phone buzzed. A message from Jenna. If you ever want to see what Marcus does at the community centre, Tuesday and Thursday, 5 p.m. Don't be weird about it. Go to learn, not to be seen. Vivienne typed thanks and didn't send it. She tucked the phone under her thigh like the thought itself might burn through the leather. Back at the house, she climbed the same staircase she'd floated down, the emerald silk suddenly too tight. In her dressing room's bright silence, she peeled herself out of the gown and sat in her slip before the mirror. Without the armour, the woman staring back looked younger and older at once. She tried on reasons not to care. Marcus had been polite and nothing more. He'd asked a question anyone could ask. He had a life so far from hers there was no bridge long enough. Each reason felt like tissue paper, tearing at the lightest tug. She pulled on an oversized sweater, bare legs tucked under her, and opened her laptop. She typed Charleston Community Centre Prosthetic Program into the search bar. Results bloomed. Grainy photos of kids on balance trainers, a short article featuring Marcus, former army medic, injury during a convoy strike, masters in PT after rehab, a quote about building strength where fear lives. Her chest tightened. She clicked a video. Marcus crouched beside a child as the boy, jaw clenched, took a step and then another. The room cheered softly, like a church that knew when to whisper. Marcus's hand hovered near the boy's elbow, close enough to catch, far enough to let him try. Vivienne closed the laptop because the feeling rising in her throat scared her. Compassion, yes, but also hunger. Not for him exactly, or not just for him. For herself. Some self she'd never met, the kind that might understand what mattered and choose it. She slid the phone from beneath her leg and opened the unsent message to Jenna. Her thumb hovered. She could hear her mother's voice. Appropriate. Her father's, don't pick fights you can't win. Trevor's laugh, easy and ugly. She hit send. Tuesday came with a sky so blue it felt staged. At 4:37, Vivienne parked 2 blocks from the community centre and sat with the engine off, pulse thudding in her wrists. She could still leave. She could still be the woman who waved from fundraisers and never crossed certain streets. Instead, she took a breath, smoothed her skirt, stepped out. The air smelled like cut grass and laundry detergent. A girl on a scooter zipped past, hair in beads that clicked like tiny bells. Through the tall front windows, Vivienne saw him. Marcus, in a grey t-shirt and black pants, moving with an economy that suggested pain somewhere that had learned to be quiet. He laughed at something a teenager said and then Sirius adjusted a footplate with sure hands. The room hummed with careful effort. Vivienne placed her palm on the glass. For a second, the cool pain held her reflection and the scene inside at once. 2 worlds overlaid. Then she opened the door. The community centre smelled like floor polish and laundry soap, the kind of clean that came from hands, not contracts. Voices rose and fell, kid laughter, a low hum of parents talking, sneakers squeaking on rubber mats. Vivienne paused just inside the door, the glass closing softly behind her. Her reflection dissolved into the bustle, as if the building itself had decided not to recognise her pedigree. "Hi there," said the woman at the front desk, hair in a bright scarf, smile practised but kind, sign-in sheet for visitors. Vivienne took the pen. It hovered over name. She wrote Vivienne and stopped before the last name could betray her. The woman slid a paper badge across. "You're welcome to watch from the far bench. No photos." "No photos," Vivienne repeated, surprised to find she meant it. In the therapy room, sunlight fell in panels across parallel bars and balance trainers. A girl no older than 8 stood between the rails, jaw tight, a new prosthetic peeking from beneath pink leggings. Her hands gripped so hard her knuckles blanched. "Briar," Marcus said, voice gentle, "you don't owe me a perfect step, just an honest one." Briar squeezed her eyes shut and shifted her weight. The prosthetic shoe scratched the mat, slid, then found purchase. She looked up, eyes shining. The room exhaled. "Honest counts," Marcus said, rolling alongside her, hands hovering without grabbing, presence steady as a metronome. Again. Vivienne sat on the bench and forgot her posture. She watched how he modulated the air, quieter for the frightened ones, playful for the ones who needed a dare, precise for the teenagers bargaining their limits. He adjusted a foot strap, demonstrated a lateral shift with his own carbon fibre limb, sleek and functional under black pants, then transferred back to the chair like a practiced dance. He saw her, noted, didn't signal, returned to Briar's rhythm. Vivienne's chest loosened. She'd half feared the spotlight would swing to her, announcing the tourist. Instead, she became furniture, which felt strangely merciful. "Can you hand me those sanitizing wipes?" a grandmother beside her asked. Tattoos curled along the woman's wrists like ivy. "We clean between turns." "Of course," Vivienne said, passing the tub. I'm Vivienne." "June," the woman replied, scrubbing the bar with care that looked like love. "My grandson thinks Mr. Marcus invented walking." Vivienne smiled. "He has that effect." June's eyes, shrewd and warm, flicked over Vivienne's blazer and skirt that cost more than a week's groceries. "You here for a class project or a change of heart?" "I don't know yet," Vivienne said, surprising herself. "Maybe both." By the time Briar completed 3 honest steps and burst into tears against her mother's waist, Vivienne had handed out water cups, fetched a roll of coloured tape, and learned that stickers, dinosaurs and glitter stars were the real currency of courage. Kids barreled past her without flinching. Parents offered her nods, cadenced by fatigue. She breathed with the room and felt something in her own life unclench, as if a stubborn door finally yielded. Session over, music low, the clatter of tidying began. Marcus wheeled over, forearms inked with faint scars like pale script. Up close, his eyes were darker than she remembered from the ballroom, a shade that held storm and sky at once. "You found the door," he said, not asking, not praising. "Ground rules if you come back. No saviour capes, no speeches, no Instagram. If you want to help, we accept boring help, wiping mats, sorting toe spacers, counting resistance bands." "Boring I can do," she said, and meant it with a relief that startled her. He gestured with his chin toward the tables. "Grab a wipe." They worked side by side, her skirt hem brushing her knees as she crouched, his chair whirring softly as he navigated a narrow gap the building planner hadn't bothered to widen. He moved like someone who had negotiated with pain and won just enough ground to live. "I owe you an apology," she said finally, voice pitched low so it wouldn't travel. "At the gala I was performing. You called it without saying it." "I asked a question," he said. It landed like an answer. He glanced at her, an amused crease at his mouth. "You always talk like this?" "Only when I'm trying too hard." "Noted." He nodded toward the storage bin. "Stickers go there. We ration the glitter ones or the room mutinies." She peeled her gloves off. "Can I ask you something? Why kids?" He set a brace on the shelf and leaned back. "Because they don't lie about fear. Adults will tell you they're fine while they're drowning. Kids tell you their knees are shaking, then they try anyway. Also, a 12-year-old's joy when he takes 3 steps without holding on is better than any plaque. Better than a Caldwell donation," she said before she could stop herself. "Who?" She flinched. No one. Then, because it felt like the first honest day she'd had in years. Me, my family. He studied her face with the patience he gave Briar. Does your last name make it harder to hear yourself? It makes it easy not to try. The sentence tasted like confession. If you'd asked me last week whether community mattered, I'd have said yes with perfect posture. She glanced at the door, at the world that waited outside it. I'm tired of perfect posture. He considered that. Keep coming, he said. If you show up for boring 2 weeks in a row, I'll believe you. Is this a test? It's a door. You can walk through or not. Her phone vibrated, a text from her mother. Cocktails in 20. Where are you? Another from Jenna. Proud of you. Don't let the chandelier crowd shame you for breathing different air. Vivienne tucked the phone away. What do you need for Thursday? Socks, he said promptly. Soft, not tight. Kids go through them, and stickers, apparently. And he hesitated, then met her eyes. Come without the need to be thanked. That's the hardest supply to find. She laughed, the sound uneven but real. I'll try. He gave her a number, typed into her phone under Marcus, and added, If you get lost, call. The centre's a maze. So is your side of town, I hear. My side of town has maps and locked gates, she said. The gates are the point. That why you're here? I think I want a different point. Thursday wasn't blue sky staged, it was humid and ordinary. Vivienne arrived with a tote full of socks and sticker sheets. She wore jeans and a soft tee. Her hair was up, her makeup was just her face. June greeted her with a chin lift. Briar waved, leg braced, courage reset. They set up cones, marked lanes, calibrated a metronome for cadence. A teenage boy named Marco refused to look at the bars. People stare, he muttered, anger coiled like a spring. People are bad at minding their business, Marcus said. We don't train for people. We train for stairs and sidewalks and soccer fields. Screw soccer, Marco said, but his hands had already found the rail. Vivienne drifted near, not offering help, just presence. You don't have to be brave, she said softly. You can just be angry and try. He cut his eyes at her, something like respect cracking the scowl. Who even are you? Someone who spent a long time pretending I wasn't anything. It's exhausting. Facts, Marco said, then lifted his foot. Honest, wobbly, true. After clean-up, they walked, they rolled. She matched his pace, 2 blocks to a corner shop that sold coffee so strong it flirted with illegality. They perched at a bistro table half on the sidewalk, legs and wheels angled to make room for the world sliding past. Why did you really come? He asked, no music in the question to soften it. Because you didn't look at me like I was a donation, she said. And because when Briar took that step and you didn't catch her, I realized I've spent my whole life keeping people from falling instead of letting them find their legs. He stirred his coffee. Or keeping yourself from falling. Or that. She smiled, small and unpracticed. What about you? Why were you so sure I'd leave after one night? Because the room you come from eats change for breakfast and calls it manners. He tapped his chest lightly. Also, I've met a lot of tourists. And now? You showed up with socks, he said. I'm not saying that's a covenant, but it's a note in the right key. Her phone buzzed, insistent. Family dinner. Tonight. She imagined the chandelier, the polished judgment, the careful sentences that said nothing and cut anyway. I should go, she said. Apparently there's a roast chicken I'm required to praise. Good luck with the poultry, he said. The line should have been a joke, but his eyes were serious. Text me if you need an exit strategy. Like what? Fake emergency? Like remembering you don't need permission to leave a room that hurts you. Vivienne traced the rim of her cup. Is that what this is? Leaving rooms? Sometimes. He nodded toward the centre they'd just left. Sometimes it's building new ones. She stood, the late light throwing her shadow long over the sidewalk. Thursday, she said, and Tuesday. Tuesday, he agreed. Bring stars, the glitter kind. Briar negotiated a treaty. She laughed. He didn't reach for her hand, and she didn't expect him to. Something steadier had begun between them. No music, no plaque, no chandelier. A door, a new room, a rhythm she wanted to learn. At the Caldwell house that night, the roast chicken shone under the chandelier like a prop. Her mother's questions were lace-wrapped knives. Where were you? With whom? That neighbourhood? Her father's silence said the rest. Trevor snorted something about field trips. Vivienne sipped water, felt the old posture rise and didn't put it on. I was somewhere that matters, she said, surprising even herself with the calm in her voice, and I'm going back. Elaine blinked as if a draft had found its way into the sealed room. We'll discuss tone later, she said. Maybe, Vivienne replied. She thought of Bria's honest step, Marco's angry lift, the way Marcus's voice made space instead of taking it. Or maybe I'll be busy. The roast chicken glittered under the chandelier like something lacquered for a museum, not dinner. Elaine carved with surgical grace. Richard scrolled through markets. Trevor poured himself another drink he didn't deserve. Vivienne cut a perfect wedge of meat and couldn't taste a thing. "Where exactly were you this afternoon?" Elaine asked, tone laced with roses and barbed wire. "At the community centre," Vivienne said. "Physical therapy." She didn't add for kids learning to walk with new legs. She didn't owe them the softness she'd witnessed. Trevor snorted. "Fieldwork for your conscience?" "Trevor," Richard murmured, reprimand without conviction. Vivienne set down her fork. "There's a girl named Bria. She took 3 honest steps today." The words fell into the room like stones in a pond, ripples, then quiet. It mattered. Elaine dabbed her mouth. "Charity is lovely, dear, but there are appropriate boundaries. Your presence, your visibility carries implications." "Yes," Vivienne said. "That's the point." The silence after that was not quiet. It was a hum in the bones. The chandelier's crystals clicking mutely with the air conditioning, the old house listening. She excused herself without asking, grabbed her keys, and didn't stop moving until the night air unstitched the perfume and polish from her lungs. She drove with the windows down, hair lifting in the humid breeze like a flag finding wind. Tuesday, Thursday, the rhythm stuck. Socks in a tote glitter stars rationed like currency. She learned the names that mattered: Bria, Marco, Essie, Ty, Mr. Johnson, who mopped with a slowness born of bad knees and stubborn pride. She learned where the tape lived, which wheel on which chair squeaked, how to fold a gate belt with respect. On the second Thursday, Marco refused again. His palms were clammy on the rails. His jaw worked. "People stare," he muttered. Vivienne stood where he could see her without asking for it. "They do," she said. "It's rude. You get to glare back." He huffed a laugh despite himself. "What if I fall?" "Marcus is right there," she said. "And if you fall, you'll do it honest, and we'll still be here." He lifted his foot, honest, wobbly, true. After, when the room thinned and the sun turned the windows honey, Marcus rolled from the storage closet with a box of resistance bands and a look that was half approval, half warning. "You're still here," he said. "Most tourists vanish after the first feel-good." "I don't feel good," she said. "I feel awake." He gestured toward the back exit. "Coffee?" They cut through the alley that smelled like rain even when it hadn't, and the corner cafe gave them cups that steamed like tiny weather systems. They took the bistro table outside again, wheels and knees angled, her tote holding station like a faithful dog. "What happened to your leg?" she asked, then winced. "I'm sorry, it's a fair question." He took a breath that seemed to count time. "Convoy, Afghanistan. Roadside blast we didn't see coming. I was a medic, woke up in Germany with less of me and more of everything else to figure out." She waited. The traffic noise softened. "The worst part wasn't pain," he said. "Pain became a roommate. The worst was the voice that said I'd lost my usefulness. Funny thing to hear when your job was keeping people alive." "What did you do with the voice?" "Sat it in a chair and taught it to listen." He tapped the carbon fibre peeking at his ankle. "And then I learned to walk until the walking wasn't a miracle anymore. It was Tuesday. After that, I learned how to teach Tuesday to other people." Vivienne stared into the swirl of her coffee as if all her past parties might surface there like oil. "My worst voice doesn't say I'm useless. It says I'm for display." His gaze met hers and held. "What do you say?" She tried the answer on the air. "I say I'm for work, real work, hands-on, not the kind with press photos." He smiled, not wide, not polite, real as a hand on your back when the room spins. "So do boring things until your bones believe you. That's the apprenticeship." "Boring I can do," she said. "It keeps me from saying things that sound expensive and mean nothing." A week later, Jenna sent a link with a single line, "Steady on." An online column had snapped Vivienne in jeans under fluorescent lights, handing a cup to a kid with a brace. The caption was kind by society standards and poisonous by plain ones. "Caldwell heiress brings lace to the lowlands." Elaine called within minutes. Darling, she began, already exasperated, you know how easily these things are misconstrued. They saw me hand a child water, Vivienne said. I can survive the misconstruction. Your reputation, Vivienne, isn't a greenhouse, she said. It won't wilt. Richard took the line. We're hosting trustees next week. No surprises, understood? Wear the blue. Smile, please. She looked at the glitter stars on her kitchen counter, at the stickers Briar had declared currency. I can't promise what my face will do anymore, she said, and hung up before she forgot which life she was choosing. Saturday, Marcus texted, neighbourhood cookout, 2nd Street Park. No dress code, high corn on the cob. She showed up with potato salad and the awkwardness of a woman who has never opened a folding chair. Children swarmed the bounce house. Someone's auntie handed her a paper plate the size of a steering wheel. A man with salt at his temples introduced himself as Samuel Reed, Marcus's father, handshake firm, smile warm. May, his mother, hugged her like an answer. You're the sock girl, she said. Good. We were running low. Vivienne laughed, ribs loosening. I can be counted on for socks. And showing up, May said. That's rarer. They ate in the shade while cicadas tuned the afternoon. Samuel told a story about fixing a water heater with a bent spoon and stubbornness. May swatted his shoulder and added the part where the kitchen flooded and nobody drowned. Marcus watched it all with a pride that bent his mouth soft. Stay for spades, May commanded as the sun tilted. We're ruthless. I don't know how, Vivienne admitted. We'll teach you, Marcus said, and then we'll suffer. She lost magnificently, which turned out to be the best way to learn. Laughter, trash talk, a tiny fist pump when she finally cut her hand at the right time. Under the string lights, with smoke in the air and music leaking from someone's speaker, she let her shoulders drop to where they belonged. No chandeliers, no curated light, just faces she was learning by name. When she finally stood to leave, May folded her into another hug that smelled like nutmeg and laundry soap. Bring yourself back, she said into Vivienne's hair. That's the only admission. Thank you, Vivienne said, and meant it. Her phone buzzed as she walked to her car. Trevor, you're trending, sis. Congrats on discovering sneakers. Try not to adopt a cause like a handbag. She stared at the screen until the words blurred, then deleted the message and the next one where he sent a laughing emoji that felt like a slap. Okay? Marcus asked, rolling up beside her. My brother is a thesaurus of condescension, she said. But yes. He looked at her, longer than the question needed. You don't have to do any of this to impress me. I'm not, she said. The truth surprised her by how easy it was to say. For once, it's not about you at all. Good, he said, because I like you better when you're not performing. The week before the trustees' cocktail, Elaine assembled Vivienne in the mirror like a centerpiece. The blue dress, the pearl comb, the smile you could unspool and drape over a room. Remember, Elaine murmured, adjusting the comb, legacy is not a story we tell once. It's maintenance. Vivienne met her own eyes and saw a woman she was learning from scratch. Maybe it's renovation, she said. At the party, oysters gleamed, and money breathed its satisfied breath. Richard introduced donors, Trevor introduced his drink to more whiskey. Margaret Weatherford called across the room. Vivienne, dear, I saw your photo. Lovely to see our young ladies involved. Vivienne turned. They're not our anything, she said pleasantly. They're people. A silence snapped taut enough to twang. Elaine's fingers touched her elbow like an electric fence. Richard recovered with a toast. To tradition. Glasses lifted. Vivienne did not. She found the back steps where the night was honest. Her phone pinged. A photo from Jenna, all caps. Bri ran 4 steps. The image was blurred and perfect. Bria mid-laugh, one hand flying, a star sticker on her cheek. Vivienne texted back before she could think. Tell her the glitter treaty stands. Stars on Tuesday. She slipped her shoes off and set her bare feet on old stone. Somewhere inside, someone laughed the way rich people laugh when they are full. Somewhere 2 neighborhoods away, a girl counted steps that changed the shape of her world. The door creaked. Richard stood framed by lamplight, the expression he reserved for bargaining across mahogany tables. We should talk, he said. Vivienne slid her heels into one hand, spine straight without the armor. We should, she agreed, and didn't move to follow him inside. Richard didn't step outside. He stayed in the doorway like a magistrate, light behind him turning his face into a verdict. We should talk, he said again, gentler now, which in Caldwell meant more dangerous. Vivienne kept her bare feet on the stone. The night carried pluff mud and gardenia, unbiddable. Then talk. He measured her the way he measured deals. There's a trustee's letter drafted. You'll sign it. It clarifies your photo at the centre. You were visiting out of curiosity. You will focus your efforts on board-level initiatives. You'll also distance yourself from the therapist. What's his name? She said it like a prayer. Marcus. Right. The syllable was a file closing. You will distance yourself, temporarily. Discretion is the marrow of legacy. If you don't... He paused, watching her for flinch. The trust is contingent on comportment. We'll suspend distributions. Your cards will be cut. This is course correction, not punishment. Vivienne almost laughed. The chandelier clicked inside, a small storm of glass. You're telling me to apologize for handing a child water. I'm telling you to remember who you are. I'm trying to, she said, and felt her voice steady on the words. It's harder in this house. He looked over her shoulder at the dark yard, the clipped hedges and obedient magnolias. The world is not kind to women who walk out of line, Vivienne. I know, she said. I'm learning to balance. He exhaled, the sound of money disappointed. Think, sleep. Tomorrow we'll sign the letter. I won't, she said. The door light haloed the edge of his profile. Then you won't sign here again. He closed the door with care, as if even endings must be done tastefully. Vivienne didn't cry until she got to her car. Not the sobs of loss. Those she understood and could stage. These were the small, angry tears of someone whose life had been curated until her bones forgot they could grow. She drove to the community centre in a t-shirt and flats and found the custodial closet unlocked. The smell of lemon cleaner steadied her. On the shelf, a lopsided tower of wipes leaned. She straightened it, counted resistance bands, reran the tape lines along the floor so they met perfectly at each corner. When she was finished, the room looked like Tuesday. Marcus texted first. You okay? June saw your car. Thought you might be negotiating with the mop. She typed, deleted, typed again. I said no to a letter that turned truth into PR. My trust is suspended. A beat. Then I didn't ask you to lose anything for me. You didn't, she wrote. I'm done losing myself for everyone else. The reply took longer. Come by May's tomorrow. 6 p.m. She's on a mission to fatten you up. May's kitchen was warm with nutmeg and steam. Eat, she commanded, passing a bowl of red rice like an oath. Samuel blessed the food with a voice that made even the steam listen. They didn't ask about trustees or letters. They asked about Briar's steps and whether Marco had discovered the pleasure of glaring back. After dinner, May pressed a carton of leftovers into Vivienne's hands. Love is groceries, she said, and rides to appointments. Don't let anybody tell you it's only fireworks and poems. On Thursday, the hallways at the centre filled with humid laughter. Vivienne stocked socks, passed water, rationed glitter stars. When Briar stumbled, Vivienne knelt to eye level. You can be mad and brave at the same time, she said. Glitter stuck to her knuckles like proof. After the session, Marcus rolled beside her to the old brick steps out back, where the evening had softened. I heard about your father, he said. I told him no, she said, and felt it again, the click of a lock opening inside her ribs. I need you to hear me say this, Marcus replied, voice careful. I won't be your rebellion. I won't be your punishment either. If you're choosing a different life, let it be because it's yours, not because mine is conveniently in reach. It's mine, she said, and surprised herself by how easily the truth came. You happened to be the person who didn't clap when I performed it. He studied her face, then nodded once, like a man who had measured risk before and knew what weight to give it. Okay. The women's assembly luncheon was 3 days later, all lilies and white linen. Vivienne went because running only felt like fear in a prettier dress. When the chair opened the floor for announcements of civic engagement, Vivienne stood. Her hands trembled, her voice didn't. I've been volunteering at the East Side Community Centre, she said. A polite buzz, interest sharpened by curiosity. Children are relearning to walk there. They are brave without being performative. I'm learning from them. Margaret Weatherford smiled like a billboard. Lovely, dear. It's so important to expose oneself to... It's important not to treat people like exposure therapy, Vivienne said. Or props. Charity isn't a chandelier. It's a mop bucket. It's socks. It's showing up when there aren't cameras. The room tightened. Silverware paused mid-air. "And," she continued, breath steady now, "I'm seeing someone who works there. His name is Marcus. He's a physical therapist. He lost his leg in Afghanistan and found a way to give other people theirs back. If that makes me unsuitable for this table, perhaps the table should wonder what it's suitable for." Jenna, 2 seats down, covered a smile with her napkin. Someone hissed. Someone else clapped once and was shushed. Vivienne set her napkin on the linen like a flag and walked out, knees shaking only once she hit the sidewalk. Outside, the heat met her like a truth. Her phone shook with messages. "Cute speech, you'll tire of sincerity. Elaine, you have humiliated us. I'll bring the wine and the bolt cutters for the gates." That night, Vivienne packed. Not anger packing. The slow, practical motions of a woman who intends to sleep where she chooses. She left the combs and the gowns. She took the jeans and the T-shirts and the flats and 3 dresses that felt like her skin and not a sales pitch. In the mirror, she pinned her hair up and laughed because she looked like herself and a stranger at once. 2 weeks turned into 6. She rented a small 3rd-floor walk-up where the stairs forced her to carry only what she loved. She set a vase on the sill and filled it with grocery store flowers that tried their hardest. She learned the bus route to the centre. She learned where the floor squeaked at the coffee shop and how to tilt a wheelchair over a curb without scraping knuckles. At the centre, Briar ran 5 steps. Marco cursed less and grinned more. Mr. Johnson taught her how to coax quiet from a stubborn wet vac. June said, "See? Useful," and slapped a glitter star on Vivienne's forearm like a medal. In the quiet hours, she and Marcus built a rhythm that didn't need chandeliers. Dinner at May's on Sundays, Mondays for watching bad movies with good commentary, Wednesdays for pain sometimes, phantom stabs that took him under and returned him scraped. She sat on the floor beside the couch then, counting breaths with him, learning when to touch and when to be weightless. "Do you ever miss who you were?" she asked once, when the worst passed and the room exhaled. "I miss what I thought was guaranteed," he said, "but I don't miss being asleep." They went to the river on a grey afternoon and watched shrimp boats move like slow thoughts. He told her the first night in Germany was loud with machines and quiet with dread, and that a nurse with a voice like gravel called him medic as if it were still true. She told him the first time she saw her name engraved on a donor wall. She was 12 and felt both huge and erased. "Maybe we're learning new walls," he said. "Or new doors," she said. The gossip column came like weather. Caldwell Scion estranged. Heiress chooses love over legacy. The photo showed them leaving the centre, her head tipped toward him, his hand on his wheel, the sunlight on brick behind them like blessing. She waited for shame and found only air. That evening, under the string lights of the park where she'd first met May and Samuel, there was a block party. Kids sticky with popsicles, spades slapping tables, laughter loud enough to argue with the cicadas. Marcus wheeled to the middle of the grass and tapped the side of his chair. "Viv," he said softly. She turned. The world narrowed to the square of light between them. "I've been thinking about rooms, about doors, about who I want sitting at my table when the power goes out." He took a breath, set his jaw. When he spoke again, his voice shook in a way she had never heard and would spend a lifetime honouring. "Marry me." Her heart did something reckless and exact. "Yes," she said, before fear could compose a memo. "Okay." He grinned, boyish and undone. "Good, because I definitely did not plan a speech and my mother is already crying." May was already crying. Samuel shook Marcus's hand so hard the chair shimmed. June whooped. Briar launched at Vivienne's knees. Marco yelled, "About time," and pretended dust got in his eye. They were married in a small church with old wood and newer blue paint that smelled faintly of lemon oil. Vivienne wore ivory that skimmed her curves without apologizing for them. Marcus wore a navy suit and a face that refused to stop being astonished. Jenna stood behind Vivienne with a bouquet she'd made from grocery store flowers and a ribbon that had been a curtain tie. May pinned a star sticker inside Vivienne's dress for luck. No Caldwells came, not even a text. The air inside the church did not create a vacancy where they should have been. "I choose you," Marcus said, voice steady now, "not because the world made it hard or easy, because you are true." "I choose you," Vivienne answered, feeling the words settle into her bones like a foundation. Not to escape a house, but to build one, the kind anyone can enter. When the pastor said the word that made them married, the room clapped like it meant it. They kissed, laughing. Briar wheeled a glittered sign down the aisle that said "Go Team," because nobody told her weddings demanded different poetry. They took photos on the church steps under a sky that remembered how to be blue. Then they slipped away to a little inn by the water, a room with a 4-poster bed and windows that opened to the harbour's breath. Vivienne stood with her hands on the sill, watching a tugboat nose past like a patient animal. Marcus rolled to her and set the brakes, the small click like a period. "Nervous?" he asked, the word gentled. "Not about us," she said, turning, "about how big everything feels." "Big is allowed," he said. He brushed his thumb along her jaw, reverent as prayer. "I have something to show you, before we—" He nodded toward the bed with a shy that undid her. "It's not fireworks, it's plans." "Plans are better than fireworks," she said. He reached into his bag for the laptop and placed it on the desk by the window, the screen turning his face into light. He hesitated, suddenly vulnerable in a way she'd never seen, and looked up. "Ready?" he asked. He clicked, and the screen filled with clean lines and light. "Before I was a medic," Marcus said, voice low, "I drew buildings. After the blast, I didn't know if that part of me got taken too. Turns out it was waiting." Vivienne leaned in. A floor plan unfolded. Wide corridors, no bottlenecks, corners softened like kindness. Therapy rooms opened into courtyards where wind could be measured by the sound of chimes. A hydrotherapy pool was shaped like a key. Family nooks dotted the hall like commas, places to pause and breathe. Every doorway looked like a welcome. "What is it called?" she asked. He hesitated. "I didn't name it. Felt pretentious." She smiled. "It looks like Tuesday." He blinked. "Tuesday? You said walking stopped being a miracle and became Tuesday." She touched the screen where a garden path curved toward a play area with low ramps and handholds disguised as whales. "This is a house that turns courage into Tuesday." "House" makes it sound small. "Good." She took his hand. "Small is what fits. Small is what you can love with your hands." He clicked again. A cross-section showing sunlight poured down a spine of skylights. Another image rendered the lobby in warm wood and polished concrete, a wall of photographs at kid height. A prosthetics lab sat off the main hall, glass walls so children could watch legs and feet take shape like magic that admitted it was work. "Marcus," she whispered, throat tight, "you built this with your brain." "I built it with my scars," he said, mouth quirking. "Brains were just the contractors." She laughed, then covered her mouth because the feeling was too big. "What if we actually built it?" He exhaled the word like a dare he'd rehearsed and never said. "It would take money we don't have. Permits, politics, hospitals prefer plaques to plans. And," he looked at her, "your family." "My family's currency is control," she said, and felt astonishment at how little it hurt to name it. "I have other currencies." "Like what?" She unhooked the sapphire studs. They lay in her palm, heavy as old expectations. "Like these," she said. "Like friends who know how to write grants and sue the city when it pretends accessibility is optional. Like a community that can throw a fish fry and fund a wing. Like a woman who can sit in a room full of trustees and not blink." "You don't have to sell your jewelry," he said softly. "I am not my jewelry," she said. "I might finally be my choices." He stared at her, something tender and terrified in his eyes, and then he nodded like a man signing his own armistice. "Okay," he said. "Let's make a list." They moved to the little desk, knees and wheels and laughter bumping, and made a plan with wedding cake still sweet on their tongues. He listed the hospital's new CEO, someone he respected because she listened before she spoke. She named Jenna for legal scaffolding, and a friend from college who made miracles out of spreadsheets. He sketched a phased build so it could open piece by piece instead of all at once. She sketched a donor map that began with barbershops and ended at boardrooms. He wrote community charrette, kids draw their hallways. She wrote May, food, Samuel, contractors. He wrote doorways wide enough for hope and grinned when she read it aloud like poetry. They fell asleep at dawn with the laptop still glowing, fingers still laced. When they finally reached for each other, it was with the reverence of people who had built a future on paper and wanted to bless it with breath. Morning brought tide and gulls and the first email. "Jenna, send me the sketches. I'll draft a 501c3 in a week. No name yet? I vote Tuesday House, but I'll pretend I didn't say that. May texted a photo of a church basement and 6 folding tables. Room's yours for Saturday. I'll handle sweet tea. You bring your plans and that hope voice. By noon they had a name without forcing it. June looked at the renderings, pressed a hand to her chest and said, "Baby, this is a doorhouse. People will walk in one way and out another." The word stuck because it was true. Word moved the way good gossip does, on foot and in kitchens. A barber put a mason jar on his counter. A pastor called 2 other pastors who didn't always agree on doctrine but agreed on children. The hospital CEO, Dr. Alvarez, a woman with steel hair and kind eyes, scrolled through the designs, then sat back hard. "We can attach an annex," she said. "We can free up land behind the old parking lot. I can handle the politics if you handle the people." "I can handle people," May said, sliding a casserole onto Dr. Alvarez's desk, as if that were part of the permit process. Vivienne sold the sapphires on a Tuesday afternoon in a shop where the jeweller treated the exchange like a funeral and a birth. She walked out lighter by heirlooms and heavier by seed money. Instead of nausea, she felt relief. The studs had always told a story that wasn't hers. The first charrette filled the church basement with crayons and opinions. Bria drew a hallway with stars on the floor you could step on when you're scared. Marco drew a gym with a scoreboard that counted tries, not wins. Mr. Johnson drew a janitor closet big enough to turn a mop in without cussing. A little boy named Ezra drew a door with hands instead of hinges, so it hugs you when you come. Marcus listened like a carpenter measuring silence. Each drawing became a sticky note, then a bullet point, then another layer on the plan. Vivienne wrote names next to needs, numbers next to dreams, asterisked the ones that would require a miracle, and then wrote May next to those too. Obstacles arrived like weather. A councilman whose smile was a blade, a zoning rule older than truth, a rumour that a Caldwell daughter was laundering her conscience with poor children. The rumour stung, but didn't stop her. She learned how to stand up and sit down in the right offices. She learned when to let Jenna's letters do the talking. She learned how to bring cookies into rooms and leave with signatures. Richard called once, voice low as a closing bell. "You can still stop," he said. "We can still fix this." "We're already fixing something," she said. "Just not what you meant." He didn't threaten this time. He said, almost softly, "I don't know who you are anymore." "I do," she said, and hung up with hands that shook and steadied. Months slid by under the same sky that had judged their wedding and blessed their mornings. Renderings turned into contracts. Contracts turned into holes in the ground. Samuel taught Vivienne to read rebar. Vivienne taught Samuel to say biophilic design without laughing. Briar's glitter star treaty expanded to include construction helmets, which was how Vivienne ended up with a gold sticker on a hard hat at the groundbreaking. The day of, the field was a churned square of red earth steaming in the sun. A banner snapped on a temporary fence. Doorhouse. Honest steps. Open hearts. The podium was a borrowed music stand. Dr. Alvarez spoke first, brief and sure. May read a psalm and an ingredients list as if both belonged. Jenna joked about suing the city into kindness. June cried and didn't apologize. Then Marcus rolled forward. Wind plucked at the paper in his hand. He set it down and didn't read. "I used to think the worst thing that happened to me was losing part of my body," he said. "Then I learned the worst thing would have been losing the rest of my life to that day." He turned his chair, gesturing to the dirt. "This place is for Tuesdays. For the days after miracles when you have to practice joy. For honest steps. For rooms that don't make you choose between what you need and how you're seen." He looked at Vivienne. The crowd blurred. The earth steadied. "It exists because people who were told to mind their gates decided to build doors." He nodded to Briar. She marched up with a pair of scissors as big as her forearm, glittered within an inch of utility. 3, she shouted. 2, 1. She snipped a ribbon that had never stood a chance, and the cheer rose like weather finally breaking. After, amid hugs and shovels and paper cups of lemonade, Vivienne caught herself scanning the edges of the crowd for her mother's cream suit, her father's measured jaw. They weren't there. The ache pinched and then, unexpectedly, let go. She found May and Samuel instead. She found June. She found Dr. Alvarez, sleeve rolled to help a kid climb a mound of dirt. She found Marcus, whose eyes were wet and laughing. They slipped away to the edge of the lot where a spray-painted rectangle would someday be a door. The map on the site fence showed it leading into the lobby, past the wall where photographs would hang at kid height. "This is where it starts," he said. "It started the night you asked if community mattered to me," she said. "I wanted it to. I just didn't know how to make my hands match my answer." He took her glittered hard hat and set it crooked on her hair. "They match," he said, "every Tuesday." Wind rattled the fence, a sound like applause. A shrimp boat pushed along the distant river, slow, stubborn, certain. Vivienne laced her fingers with his and looked through the ghost of the doorway at a building that wasn't there yet and somehow already was. She pictured the floor covered in stars, honest ones you could step on when you were scared. She pictured a janitor closet where Mr. Johnson could turn without swearing. She pictured a girl running 3 steps and then 4 and then forgetting to count. "We built a door," she said. "We built a house for them," he said. He kissed her. A simple, certain kiss that tasted like sun and sawdust and a future that didn't need chandeliers to shine. Behind them, children began to dance on the red earth, shoes kicking dust that glittered faintly in the light. Ahead of them, nothing and everything waited.